When I think back to my senior year of high school, I always remember how much of it was shaped by one person, Mr. Spencer Reynolds. He was my English teacher, and for me, he wasn't just some guy standing at the front of the classroom telling us to analyze Shakespeare. He was the kind of teacher everyone wanted to impress, the one who seemed to actually see you, not just as another kid in a desk, but as someone with potential. For me, he was more than just a mentor, he was almost like the older brother I never had. My name is Alissa, and when I tell you this story, I want you to understand how much I admired him before everything fell apart. It started in September. Senior year was supposed to be this exciting chapter of life: prom, college applications, making memories with friends before we all went off in different directions. But for me, the year had started on a shaky note. My parents had divorced that summer, and while they were busy fighting about money, I was caught in the middle. I didn't feel like I had anyone who really cared about what was going on with me, except maybe my best friend Lauren, but even she was wrapped up in her new boyfriend. That's probably why I clung to Mr. Reynolds' class so much. He noticed things others didn't. If I seemed tired, he'd ask if I was okay. If I turned in something good, he'd write more than just "nice work." He'd scribble notes about how my writing made him feel, or how he saw a real talent in me. And as a 17-year-old who felt invisible at home, those little gestures meant everything. At first, it was harmless. He'd stay after class to talk with me about my essays. He'd recommend books he thought I'd like. He even encouraged me to enter a writing competition, and when I hesitated, saying I wasn't good enough, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Alissa, don't let the world convince you you're small. You're capable of more than you realize." Those words stuck with me. But then little things started happening that didn't quite add up. For example, I once saw him in town late at night when I was out with Lauren. He was coming out of a diner, but instead of saying hi, he ducked his head and hurried to his car. Lauren joked that maybe he had a secret girlfriend he didn't want us to see, but for some reason it unsettled me. Why would a teacher care so much about hiding something from students? As the weeks went by, I began to notice that he sometimes looked tired in class, like he hadn't slept. Once, when I asked if he was okay, he gave me this strange smile and said, "Don't worry about me, Alissa. Some things aren't what they look like." I brushed it off, but it lingered in my mind. Things took a turn when I stayed late after school one day to work on my short story draft. The hallways were mostly empty, and the quiet was almost eerie. As I was leaving, I heard voices down the hall near the faculty lounge. I recognized Mr. Reynolds' voice, but it was tense, almost angry. He was talking to another teacher, Mrs. Miller, and though I couldn't catch every word, I heard enough to freeze me in place. He said, "If anyone finds out, it won't just ruin me, it'll ruin her too." My heart started racing. I didn't know who he was talking about, but the way he said "her" made me wonder if he meant a student. I felt sick at the thought. I left quickly, trying to shake off what I'd overheard, but that night, it kept replaying in my head. I told myself I was overthinking, that maybe he was just talking about a family issue or something private. But the doubt was planted, and I couldn't ignore it. The next week, something even stranger happened. During class, I dropped my notebook, and when I bent down to pick it up, I noticed something fall out of Mr. Reynolds' bag. It was a folded piece of paper, slightly crumpled. He didn't notice, but I did. When class ended and everyone was leaving, I picked it up, intending to return it. But when I looked down at it, curiosity got the better of me. It wasn't just a note, it was a letter. A handwritten letter, and from the few lines I accidentally caught before quickly folding it back, it wasn't something a teacher should be carrying around. The words, "You promised," and "if she finds out," jumped out at me, and I felt this chill run down my spine. When I handed it back to him, he smiled at me, but it didn't feel the same as before. His smile was tight, forced, almost like he was testing me. "Thanks, Alissa," he said softly. "You didn't read that, did you?" I froze. My throat went dry. "No," I lied quickly. "I just picked it up." He studied me for a long moment, like he could see right through me, and then nodded. "Good. Some things aren't meant for curious eyes." I went home that day feeling like the ground under my feet had shifted. This was the man I had admired for years, the teacher who had made me believe in myself. But now I couldn't shake the feeling that I was standing too close to something dangerous, something that could unravel everything I thought I knew about him. I told myself I should just let it go, keep my head down, and focus on school. But that night, as I stared at the ceiling in my bedroom, I knew one thing for sure: Mr. Reynolds wasn't who I thought he was. And I wasn't sure I wanted to find out the truth, but I also knew I wouldn't be able to stop myself from digging deeper. The next morning, I felt like I was walking through fog. Every step toward school felt heavier than the last. I couldn't stop thinking about that letter and the conversation I overheard. What did he mean by, "It'll ruin her too"? Who was he talking about? I knew I had to find out, even if it meant crossing lines I wasn't supposed to cross. During lunch, I texted Lauren, but I didn't tell her everything. I couldn't. I just said, "Something weird is going on with Mr. Reynolds. I can't explain it, but I'm worried." She replied almost immediately with a laughing emoji and, "You're imagining things, Alissa. He's a teacher, not a spy." I tried to tell myself she was right, but the seed of doubt had already taken root. That afternoon, I stayed after class again under the pretense of asking about an essay, but really, I was hoping to catch him alone, maybe hear more of what he was hiding. The classroom was empty except for him and the faint hum of the radiator. I tried to act casual. "Hey, Mr. Reynolds, can I ask you a question about my essay?" I asked, trying to sound normal. He looked up from his papers and nodded. "Of course, Alissa. What is it?" But his eyes lingered on me a little too long, and I realized he probably already knew why I was really there. "Actually, never mind," I said quickly, but before I could turn away, he said, "You're worried about something, aren't you?" My stomach twisted. I don't know what you mean," I said, my voice betraying me. He got up and closed the door behind him. "Alissa, some things are complicated," he said quietly. "Sometimes the people we trust the most aren't what we think they are." I froze, my chest tightening. I wanted to ask him what he meant, but the words caught in my throat. I should go," I stammered. "No, stay," he said. He moved closer, but not in a threatening way, more like he wanted to explain something. "I've made mistakes, Alissa, things I regret, and I wish I could change them, but the world doesn't give us a second chance. You need to be careful. People aren't always who they appear to be." My mind was spinning. I had always admired him, looked up to him, maybe even trusted him more than anyone, and now he was talking like a stranger, warning me instead of being the person I thought he was. I left the classroom shaking, my notebook clutched in my hand like a lifeline. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction I'd ever had with him, wondering if I had misread everything. But then, the next morning, it got worse. Someone had posted a message on our school's anonymous forum that mentioned Mr. Reynolds by name. "Don't trust him. He's not who he seems." There were no details, just that line. My heart pounded. Could someone else know what I was starting to realize? Was it a warning or just a coincidence? I tried to brush it off, but I felt exposed, like the world had suddenly shifted and I was in danger. A week later, I decided to confront him, even though every part of me screamed not to. After class, I followed him to the parking lot, keeping my distance. I had rehearsed a million ways to ask him, but when I saw him talking to someone I didn't recognize, a man in his 30s, someone I'd never seen before, my plan went out the window. I ducked behind a car and watched. The man handed him a thick envelope. Spencer looked around nervously before tucking it into his coat. I felt my heart drop. What was in that envelope? Why all the secrecy? I wanted to run away, to pretend I hadn't seen anything, but something inside me demanded answers. Later that night, I tried looking him up online, hoping to find something, anything, that could explain what I'd seen. That's when I stumbled onto a small news article from a few years ago. A woman had accused a teacher at our school of inappropriate behavior, but the case had been closed, and the teacher's name was redacted. My stomach dropped. Could it be him? No. I shook my head. That couldn't be true. But the fear in me was real, and now I wasn't sure what to think. The next morning, I noticed he was watching me differently in class. There was a tension, like we were both aware of something unspoken. I couldn't focus on anything he said. I just kept thinking about the envelope, the letter, the warning, and the possibility that everything I thought I knew about him was a lie. By the end of the week, I realized that I had to find out the truth, no matter what it meant. I didn't know what I'd uncover or how it would change everything, but I couldn't let it go. I had to know who Spencer Reynolds really was, and I had a feeling that when I did, it wasn't going to be what I expected. I couldn't stop thinking about that envelope, and by Monday, I knew I had to follow him. After school, I waited by the parking lot, pretending to scroll through my phone, but my eyes never left him. Spencer got into his car and started driving, and I followed, keeping a safe distance. My hands were shaking, my chest was tight, but I couldn't stop. He drove for what felt like forever, through streets I didn't recognize, until finally he turned into a small, run-down office building I had never seen before. He parked and went inside, and I stayed hidden in my car across the street. I watched as he disappeared into a back room, and a few minutes later, the man from the parking lot emerged. I couldn't hear what they said, but the tension in their body language made my stomach churn. Then I saw Spencer come back out, but he wasn't alone. A young woman, maybe 18 or 19, got into the car with him. My heart froze. She looked nervous, scared even. They drove off together, and I followed again, keeping my distance but feeling like I was suffocating from worry. Where were they going? What was happening? I had no idea, but I couldn't stop. Finally, they stopped at a secluded park near the river. I watched as Spencer got out, grabbed the girl's hand, and they walked toward a hidden path in the woods. I felt my chest tighten even more. Something about the way they moved made my stomach churn. They weren't just walking, it was urgent, secretive, like they were hiding from someone. I wanted to run to them, to yell and stop him, but I didn't. Instead, I stayed hidden, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles were white. Then, without warning, I saw the girl pull away from him. She looked terrified, shaking her head, and ran into the trees. Spencer called after her, but she disappeared. He looked frantic, like he hadn't expected this. My mind raced. Who was she? Why was he there? Was she in danger? I wanted to follow her, but I had no idea where she went, and the thought of losing her in the dark woods terrified me. I waited, hoping Spencer would leave so I could investigate, but instead, he started pacing near the path, muttering to himself. Then I saw it. He pulled out his phone and started taking pictures. Pictures of the trees, the shadows, the area where she disappeared. My stomach dropped. Why was he taking pictures? Was he tracking her? That's when I realized something chilling. Spencer Reynolds, the man I had admired, might not just be hiding secrets from the world, he might be hiding secrets from the law. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't call the police, I had no proof of anything. I couldn't confront him, he was unpredictable. I felt trapped in this nightmare, realizing the person I had trusted the most could be dangerous. The next morning, I barely slept. My mind replayed everything I saw over and over, trying to make sense of it. At school, he seemed normal again, smiling, teaching, encouraging students like nothing had happened. But I knew better. That evening, I decided I needed answers. I went online again, digging deeper into public records, old news articles, anything that could tell me who Spencer Reynolds really was. That's when I found a small online forum, hidden and private, where people shared experiences about teachers and predators. I hesitated, but curiosity got the better of me. I scrolled through, heart racing, until I saw it. Someone had posted about a man matching Spencer's description. They mentioned a young woman, secrecy, threats if she told anyone. My stomach turned to ice. I realized that I wasn't just imagining things, Spencer had a history. And the worst part? The woman I saw in the park could be his next target. I knew I had to do something, but I had no idea what. I felt powerless, terrified, and yet, a part of me knew that if I didn't act, I might regret it forever. I stayed up that night, making plans, trying to figure out how I could help her without putting myself in danger. By morning, I had a decision, would confront him, but carefully, strategically. I couldn't let him know I was onto him yet. I needed evidence, something concrete, something that would expose the truth. As I walked into class that morning, I felt my heart pounding, knowing that everything was about to change. Spencer Reynolds, my favorite teacher, was not who I thought he was. And I was about to uncover the darkest side of him, the side he had hidden from everyone, including me. By the time Friday came, I felt like I was carrying a secret that was going to crush me. Every time Spencer spoke in class, I watched his every move, his every expression, and all I could see was a mask. No one else seemed to notice. Students laughed at his jokes, teachers greeted him in the hallway like he was their favorite colleague, but to me, every smile looked forced, every laugh sounded hollow. I needed proof, something undeniable, and I knew where to get it. That night, I went back to the office building I had followed him to. It was late, but the place still had lights on and a few windows. I parked across the street, my heart racing, and waited. Hours passed, and just when I thought I'd made a mistake, I saw him. Spencer walked out carrying that same thick envelope, but this time he wasn't alone. The same man from before was with him, and they looked tense. I knew I was risking everything, but I grabbed my phone and started recording from the car. The video was grainy, but it clearly showed them exchanging the envelope, Spencer counting through the papers inside, and the man nodding. My stomach flipped. Whatever this was, it wasn't just secret, it looked illegal. Suddenly, Spencer stopped and looked around, his eyes scanning the parking lot. For a terrifying second, I thought he had spotted me. I ducked low in my seat, holding my breath, my heart slamming against my ribs. After a moment, he got back into his car and drove away, the man disappearing into the night. I sat there shaking, my phone clutched in my hand, knowing I finally had something real. But it wasn't enough. I needed to know what was in that envelope. The next day, I tried to act normal around him, but my nerves betrayed me. He caught me staring more than once, and at the end of class, he asked me to stay behind. My blood ran cold. "Alissa," he said, closing the classroom door, "you've seemed distracted lately. Is everything okay?" His tone was calm, but there was something sharper underneath it, something that made me feel trapped. "I'm fine," I said quickly, but my voice cracked. He tilted his head, studying me. "You know, curiosity can be dangerous. People who ask too many questions often find answers they don't like." My hands trembled as I clutched my notebook to my chest. He smiled faintly, but his eyes didn't match the smile. "Be careful, Alissa. You don't want to make mistakes you can't take back." The warning was clear, and it terrified me. That night, I showed the video to Lauren. She laughed at first, saying maybe it was just paperwork, but when she saw my face, her smile faded. "Okay, this is weird," she admitted. "But you can't just accuse him of something without proof. What if you're wrong?" I wanted to believe I was wrong. God, I wanted it more than anything. But then my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Stop following me, Alissa. This is your last warning." My blood went cold. I hadn't told anyone else what I was doing, not even Lauren. There was only one way he could have known. He was watching me just as closely as I was watching him. I didn't sleep that night. Every creak of the house, every shadow outside my window made me jump. By morning, I knew one thing: Spencer Reynolds was dangerous, and I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. The next step was clear, but terrifying. I needed to find the girl I'd seen with him at the park. She was the key. If I could find her, I could prove everything. But I had no idea who she was, or where to start looking. All I knew was that the clock was ticking, and Spencer was already on to me. The weekend felt like a blur, but my determination grew sharper with every hour. I couldn't stop picturing that girl running into the woods, her face pale with fear. Who was she? If I could find her, I'd finally have proof. I started combing through the school's online student directory, yearbooks, even social media pages of alumni. Hours turned into days, and finally, I found her. Her name was Emily, a senior who had graduated last year. My heart pounded as I clicked on her profile. Most of her photos were normal, selfies, friends, graduation, but then I saw a post she'd made a few months ago. It was vague but chilling. Some teachers aren't who they say they are. Be careful who you trust. The comments were full of classmates asking what she meant, but she never replied. I knew I had to reach out. With trembling hands, I typed, "Emily, this is Alissa. You don't know me, but I think I saw you with Mr. Reynolds. Please, I need to talk to you." Hours passed with no response. Just when I was about to give up, a message popped up. "Meet me tomorrow. Don't tell anyone. If he finds out, we're both in danger." The next day, I met her at a quiet coffee shop on the edge of town. She looked older than her pictures, worn down, like she'd been carrying something heavy for too long. "You shouldn't be here," she said as soon as I sat down. "If Spencer knows we're talking, he'll come after us." My stomach twisted. "Please, Emily. I need to know the truth." She hesitated, then whispered, "He's not just a teacher. He's been working with someone, blackmailing students, even staff. That envelope you saw? It's full of dirt on people, things they do anything to keep hidden. He uses it to control them." My blood ran cold. "But, why you? Why were you with him?" Tears filled her eyes. "Because he has something on me too. He threatened to ruin my life if I didn't help him. That's why I ran that night. You saw it, didn't you?" I couldn't take it anymore. My mind raced. Spencer wasn't just hiding secrets, he was building an empire of them, manipulating everyone around him. "We have to go to the police," I said. Emily shook her head violently. "No. You don't understand. He has connections. He'd find out before they did anything. We need proof, real proof." That night, I barely slept. Emily had confirmed my worst fears, but I knew she was right. The video I had wasn't enough. I needed the envelope. It was the only way to expose him. The next day, I followed Spencer again, heart pounding harder with every turn. I watched him enter the office building, envelope in hand. I waited until he left, then slipped inside. The place was nearly empty, quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights. I found the room he always went into and, with shaking hands, pushed the door open. Inside was a filing cabinet. I pulled it open and froze. It wasn't just one envelope, it was dozens. Files, photos, letters, recordings, all labeled with names I recognized. Students, teachers, even administrators. My stomach turned as I realized the scale of it. He wasn't just manipulating people, he was controlling the whole school. Suddenly, I heard footsteps. Panic shot through me. I grabbed one of the envelopes at random and shoved it into my bag, slamming the drawer shut just as the door creaked open. Spencer stood there, his eyes locking onto mine. "Alissa," he said softly, but his voice was laced with fury. "I warned you." My heart pounded so loud I could barely hear his words. "You don't understand what you've done." He stepped closer, and I thought I was finished. But before he could move again, another voice rang out. "Stop right there." It was Emily. She had followed me. She held her phone up, recording everything. Spencer froze, realizing he'd been caught. His mask slipped for the first time, rage twisting his face. "You think anyone will believe you?" he snarled. But it was too late. Emily had it all, his threats, his anger, his face exposed. Within a week, the school was swarming with investigators. Spencer Reynolds was suspended, then arrested. The files I'd taken were enough to unravel everything he'd built. Teachers who had been under his thumb came forward, students too scared to speak finally told their stories. It was bigger than I ever imagined, but it was over. Or at least, it should have been. Sometimes I still see his face in my dreams, hear his warning in my head: curiosity can be dangerous. Maybe he was right. But if I hadn't asked questions, if I hadn't pushed past the fear, no one would have ever known who he really was. The day I realized my favorite teacher wasn't who I thought, it didn't just change how I saw him. It changed how I saw everything.